Hey, welcome to Impress the Boss. I'm Catherine.
I'm Laurel.
And I'm Valerie.
And we're here to help you stand out without working overtime. This week, we're talking about Bobbie-Two Shoes. If you haven't been up to speed, check out impresstheboss.com for all the descriptions about the Bobs. So we'll talk about who Bobbie-Two Shoes is, a case study around her, and then some questions to think about if you relate to this character. Now, Bobbie-Two Shoes is very dear to my heart. This is actually my favorite Bob name because it's just hilarious.
It's so funny.
It is so funny.
It makes
to
me smile every time.
It does, doesn't it? Bobbie-Two Shoes. So Bobbie-Two Shoes, her Bible is the HR handbook. She follows it to a T. Bobbie-Two Shoes, you can always count on her to listen to you because she doesn't want to upset you. She's very people-pleasing. But I think with the very positives of working with her, there are some downsides to Bobbie-Two Shoes. Mostly, she gives to get, which is very indicative of
a little bit of a helper in Enneagram 2.
Enneagram 2. So in this personality, though, I think because there's this idea of I want to give to you, but I also want to get something out of giving, there is this idea of becoming very chameleon-like. So not really showing her true self because she wants you to be happy with her, very just wanting you to be pleased. Yep. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge relationally and a challenge in the workplace as well. So Bobbie-Two Shoes definitely has some things to overcome. Now, I should know that Bobbie-Two Shoes has some things to overcome because this is actually the Bob that I relate to the most.
I was just going to say that. It's like, this sounds like you, Catherine.
Valerie can attest to it.
I know. And some people might actually, if you know me and you're listening, you might be like, yep, that's Catherine. And some people might say like, oh, no, that's not Catherine. That surprises me. But I think that's what's interesting about all the Bobs and the identities of the Bobs is it's not always evident or it's not always outright. Yes. So, throughout this season on Impress the Boss, Laurel shared about how she really identifies with Bobby Parton, and Val shared about how she identifies with Bob Ross. And so I want to just dig into a personal story about how I identify with Bobbie-Two Shoes. It's interesting. When I was younger, in my 20s, I mean, I'm still in my 20s. No, I'm just kidding. I wish. When I was
amazing.
Yeah, it would be. I don't know. I don't know if I want to relive my 20s.
Well, you know what she's doing, Laurel? She's already being a chameleon. She's trying to be like us. We're in our 20s.
Yes, exactly. So in my 20s, I really struggled. I was working this one job and had this manager, and he did not know how to communicate his expectations very clearly. He got very upset if you were like a minute late to a meeting. I'm not really an on-time person. He got very upset if you didn't do things exact. And it was very difficult for me because I wanted him to be happy with me, but I really struggled because some of the things he wanted were very contrary to my personality. And so I noticed this trend of really just people-pleasing, of saying yes, of hiding who I actually was.
And what you needed.
And what I needed, not being able to express what I needed because I just wanted to people please and have them be happy with me. So it's been interesting to see the progression. I work for a manager currently whom I get along with fabulously. And what's interesting in the dynamic with my current boss is it is a very safe environment for me. And he actually allows me to argue with him. I do not recommend you argue with your boss, but
unless you're invited.
Yes.
I mean, he's a little bit of a contrarian, so I just happen to be a contrarian. So we tend to get along great. But I think what it does for me is because, I give everything to my job, right? I want them to be happy with me. I want them to be happy with my performance. So he gets a very hard worker who's dedicated to company goals. But in return, what he gives me is a very safe environment where I'm able to express myself. Yeah. And that's one of the challenges with a Bobbie-Two Shoes is, you want to be really good, but that's not necessarily your true self. Yeah. Or what you're actually feeling. Right. And so it's really that balance of learning how to accurately communicate and really not in an argumentative way. That's probably my downside. Not probably. That is my downside. But learning how to properly communicate when I am frustrated because, I want them to be happy, but I'm frustrated. And so that dichotomy a little bit.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's a good one. That is a challenge. And it's interesting. We haven't talked a lot about how these impact us in our personal lives, but that's a good one as far as like there's a lot of impact in personal relationships for that.
There is a lot of impact in personal relationships. And I think it's really interesting to me where I'm at this exact moment, because I feel I am more myself at work because I've set up this very, it's a very safe environment for me. I'm very much kind of myself, good and bad. But in some personal relationships right now, I can think of a couple, I'm really struggling to communicate my true self. Like, are you okay with this about me? And that's a challenge of the Bobbie-Two Shoes for sure.
Right. That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, Catherine. That,
yes.
For me, for knowing you, I can definitely say that you are a Bobbie-Two Shoes.
Thank you, Valerie. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
Oh, it's good. It's good. And if you're listening today and you want to know if you are a Bobbie-Two Shoes, then we have some questions that you can begin to ask yourself. The first question would be, are you someone who is afraid of breaking rules, especially in the work environment? Are you the one, as that Catherine said, it holds true to the HR book, and you are afraid of breaking anything in it? The second question would be, do you get emotionally entangled when somebody is upset with you?
Oh.
And I do see that in a Bobbie-Two Shoes, that in that character behavior, when somebody is upset with a Bobbie-Two Shoes, they are emotionally just kind of out of whack.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the third question would be, what is or when is the last time that you were able to truly express your own opinion, that you just kind of let go and just voiced out what you were really thinking? And I think that's important. If you are a Bobbie-Two Shoes, to be able to express what you are thinking.
Absolutely.
And because if you don't, this is another question: do you find yourself getting involved in groupthink? I think that is an easy trap for a Bobbie-Two Shoes, to just go with the flow. Yes, yes, nay, nay.
Yeah.
And then lastly, the question of a Bobbie-Two Shoe is: are you a chameleon? And do you see yourself just changing when people are changing, and you want to be likable and acceptable and look just like them? And so with that said, I want to also end with the last question that we always ask and press the boss: are your gifts turning into the biggest, not only challenges in your workplace, but are they turning into the biggest detriments of how you are at work?
And if you need to join a Bobbie-Two Shoes support group, I will be starting one. Absolutely. Each will be. Yeah. No kidding. Well, hopefully this gives you some good things to think about. Maybe not good things, some challenging thoughts this week to consider. And if you are a Bobbie-Two Shoes, or you know Bobbie-Two Shoes, to have a little grace on them this week, but to share your experiences on social with us at #ImpressTheBoss. And we look forward to seeing you on the other side. Thanks. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you listening in. If you'd like to learn more about the Bobs, go to impresstheboss.com, where you will see all our Bob characters and hopefully find one that you relate to as well. While you're there, subscribe to be part of our crew and you'll get our free tool download. Also, follow us on social, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook for our daily standout tips. Thanks for joining, and until next time, Bob's out.